So in the last video, I was supposed to treat switch statements, but we went into ternary operators, and I didn't know it was going to take that long, and we couldn't combine the two. So I had to separate the switch statement into a different video. So we have this video for the switch statement. So in JavaScript, switch statement is also a conditional statement. Is used for conditional expressions, just the way we use if statement. So the switch statement evaluates an expression and executes a block of code depending on the value of the expression. So this is the structure of an if statement. We have switch, then we have the expression. So we have an expression here, and in this case, we're not saying this expression will evaluate to true. It can be true, it can be a Boolean value, or any other value, right? So this, in this case, this is not a condition, so this is an expression. So it can be a variable, it can be anything. So this is not a condition, unlike in if statement that what we had in the bracket. So we had something like this: if age is less than 18, like this. So this is called a condition, right? So it has to be true, it has to evaluate to true or false, it has to evaluate to a Boolean value. But here this is an expression, so just take note of that. So we have an expression here, and we get the value of that expression, and the value of this expression can be in any data type. So it can be a Boolean, can be a string, can be a number, can be any data type, right? So then we check the values here, say case value 1. So if the value is this, then we execute this block of code. If the value is this, we execute this block of code. And if the value is neither value 1 nor value 2, then we fall back to this default block, and then we execute the default expression. Okay, so let's okay, so in the previous video we were able to write a conditional statement like this. So this is a ternary operator, using ternary operator, which is who makes the if statement shorter. So let's see how we can write this using the switch statement. If we clear this console and we execute this code, everything works fine. So let's see how we can write the same thing with the switch statement. So to use the switch statement, we do something like this: switch and age. Okay, so we can see that this is an expression and not a condition. So this is not going to give us whether true or false. It's going to give us the value of age. So in this case, age is a number, an integer in this case, right? So this is the value here, can be any data type, can be of any data type. It mustn't be a Boolean value, unlike in if statement. So we have switch age, and then we say case okay, now this is a bit tricky because when you say case, we have to use a specific value. So let's try with specific values first. Let's say case 10. Then we do this console.log you are 10. Let's do this. Let's just test if this will work. You are not 10, right? Okay, so let's run this. Okay, so the first one says you are an adult, which comes from this conditional statement, and then the next one says you are not 10 because the age here is not 10. So the structure here is we have switch, then the variable or the expression. So switch, in this case age. So we want to check the different values of age. So if age is 10, then do this. If not, do this. So in this case, we have two options. We are working with two options. If the person is 10, then you should print you are 10, and if not, you should print you are not 10. So let's see how we can implement this with. So if we say less than 18, let's be sure this works. Oh, that will give an error. I thought as much. So we can't convert this exact thing into switch statement, right? Because switch statement deals with specific values. So I can't do this. I can't say case less than 18 like this. So what we are doing with switch statement is to check for specific values. So if the value is 10, like we saw, so in this case, if the value is 18, then it should do this, right? So if the value is 18, then you should print, in this case, you are 18. So if the value is 18, then you should print you are 18. If not, you should say you are not 18. So let's see how we can apply, where can we apply this switch statement. So if you remember, previously we did something. Let's undo, if we can get back to our gender program. Okay, seems I can't undo further. So let's change this to gender, and we have female. So this is what we did. So if gender is equal to female like this, then it says you are female. Great. Let's clear this first so that we have a good display. So we say if gender is female, you should say you are female. If not, you are male. So if I change this to male, it says you are male, right? Even though there's an issue with our flow right now, because if I change this to something else like this, it still says you are male. So we should be able to handle that. So we will handle that in our switch statement. So we can apply switch statement to this. We can apply switch statement to this because in this case we are dealing with specific values. So we are not dealing with a range of values. So if you are dealing with a range of values, then it's better you use if statement. So if you have to deal with something like less than or equal to, or greater than or equal to, if you are dealing with this kind of values, then it's better to use if statement. So to use switch statement, then you need to have specific values. Like in our case, we have gender. It can be female, it can be male, like that. So let's say we have switch. Let's convert that to switch expression or statement. So we have our switch, and we're switching on gender. So we say case female like this, and we say console.log you are female, and we're going to introduce a break here. Then we say case, so to handle the error I showed you in the last program, the last when we last executed this, where we had this and this said your mail. Okay, I haven't finished this, so I have an error. So but when we ran this, this was gender is equal to this and it still said your male, so we want to correct that. So we say case male, so we have a specific value here, dot log, say you are male, break, then default. So default, it says invalid value provided. Great. So if I run this, let me clear this. So if I run this, it says the first one says you are a male, while the second says invalid value provided. That's because we'll be able to handle that edge case here, right? So that can be handled in if statement as well. So if you want to handle it in if statement, we can say else if gender that is equal to male. Don't need this, so that's when it should print this. Else it should say invalid. So if we run this, we are going to have the same output in both statements. Error. Else. Okay, I need a closing bracket here. All right, let's clear this once again. All right, so we see that we have invalid value provided in both cases. All right, so this is an if statement and this is a switch version of it. So if you are dealing with specific values like this, then you have two options in writing your conditional flow. So you can either use an if statement or you can use a switch statement like this. Now notice that in the switch statement we made use of this break. So let's comment out this break and see what happens. Let me clear this. Okay, nothing happened in this case, so let's change this to female. Let's clear this again. So there's something I want to show you, right? So this first you are female is coming from here. In fact, let's just comment this because we don't need it right now. Okay, so we can see that the switch statement is executing, and when we are at case female, it printed you are female, but it didn't stop. It went ahead to print console.log you are male as well. So you can see we have you are male, and then the same thing happened here. It still printed invalid value provided. You don't want to have this kind of experience in your program. So that's what the break statement does. So the break helps to stop the execution of further code in this block. So how the switch statement works is if we find what is looking for, so in this case if we say case female, if it's female, then it executes that block from that, it executes from that block downward. So anything from here down is going to be executed. So to stop the execution of the code after this particular block, after this block here, we don't want it to continue executing down to this point. Just to stop it from executing to the other blocks of code, we introduce the break. So the break makes sure that we only execute what is within this block and don't go down. So that means if I want to add another code, for this female condition, then I have to excuse me, I have to put it before my break statement. If I put it after the break, it's never going to be executed. So if I have another line of code I want to add, then it has to come before the break statement. So the breaks prevent us from executing the other blocks as well. Okay, so since the default, after the default we don't have any other thing, that's why we didn't put a break here, right? So because there's no need for that, after the default we don't have any other thing, so there's no need to put a break. So take note of that. In your switch statement, make sure you have breaks in each of the blocks. If not, you are going to have this funny experience. So let's run this again and make sure that everything works fine. So we have you are female. So we can go ahead and delete this, and then we have just our switch statement. So we can either use if statements or switch statement to execute this kind of condition in our program. So that is it for this video. See you in the next video. If you have questions, you can ask in the comment section and I'll attend to them. Thank you.